What's happening, everyone? Hope you are doing well. You are with Noor here, and welcome to this week's weekly training, where in this video we are going to go over why you as the founder are still the bottleneck after hiring and how to fix it. Okay, so in case you've yet to have the displeasure of meeting me, my name is Noor. I used to run the operations for a company called Imperium Acquisitions. Ultimately helped the company scale from 100k a month all the way to 700k a month in cash whilst evolving the operations, and I helped grow the team from a team of 5 to a team of 40 by the time I had left. And I also was able to support fulfillment across 4,000 clients across various verticals in the coaching, consulting, course selling, and marketing agency space over the past 4 years. And all in all, in doing this, I was able to build systems that helped founders scale without becoming the bottleneck. Okay, so this is the company in question. It's safe to say we achieved a fair amount. If you click on results, my face is shamelessly plastered over the client interviews because I had the privilege of doing them. Not the best of backgrounds. I wish I had this background that you see today, and I indirectly damaged the brand by having the bedroom background partnered with some Nike tracksuits, some gym wear. But yeah, Charlie and Bo, if you're watching, I do apologize. But yeah, can't go back and change the backgrounds, unfortunately. Now, coming back to the video at hand, you're probably wondering what the purpose of this channel is now. I now help 6 to 7 figure coaches, consultants, and info product owners, and even online marketing agencies build businesses that can scale without them. Alongside this, the other purpose is to expand my network beyond the corner of my living room here, as right now it's just me, myself, and I. And I ultimately want to build goodwill before I inevitably try to sell you something. The game is the game. Now, some preemptive disclaimers. My voice is boring as shit. So if you're struggling to sleep, magnesium partnered with these videos will fix your apnea. It goes without saying, this is not medical advice. I'm an absolute rambler. If you can't tell already, I'm working on it. And there's no magic fix it or get rich quick pill in these videos. If you do find one, message me on Instagram. I've been searching for 8 years. Now, quotes of the day: you're a businessman, not Superman. Enjoy your money, enjoy your success, enjoy life. Don't trick yourself out of your position. In the past, like 7-8 years of being in this online space, I've seen so many people achieve wonderful success, and then they trick themselves out of their position by trying to be something they're not. And as a result of trying to be something they're not, they lose everything, okay? So remember, you're a businessman. You're not Superman, you're not bulletproof. Just enjoy the business game, enjoy your money, enjoy your success, enjoy life. Don't trick yourself out of your position. Enjoy what you've built, okay? So let's boogie, let's get into the training. Now, the reason this video exists is because for some of you watching right now, there's a chance that you've hired team members, yet for whatever reason, you're still the bottleneck, okay? And the problem behind that is that hiring team members isn't the solution in isolation, because more context needs to be had here. Now, the most common reaction you have when it comes to in experiencing pain as a founder is to assume that you need to hire more people. When you feel overwhelmed, your calendar's full, growth stalls, and whatever else you got going on in the business, the default assumption is that you need a bigger team. Here's the truth, however. Adding people to a broken system, it doesn't fix the system. It just scales the breakage at hand. If your business relies on your specific knowledge, your line of thinking, your quick decision making, your personal touch to function, and all these different things that are associated with you, bringing in a new team member, it's not going to change that. They'll simply become another person waiting for you to tell them what to do. The problem is that headcount is often used as a band-aid for bad operational architecture. When you hire without systemizing first, you're not hiring, or you're not buying leverage, you're literally buying management overhead. You're quite literally paying salary to someone who will inevitably become stuck behind the exact same bottlenecks that are currently keeping you stuck. So I can't tell you, how many times I've spoken with a client and they'll say they've got X amount of team members, yet everything's still being done with them. And it's like, well, what is going on here? Because now you've had one complexity in the form of bottlenecks within your business, but now you've got that complexity and then a human complexity with unnecessary hires that you've just made, okay? So the purpose of this video in question is to show you exactly why hiring more people into a founder-dependent business, it usually creates more management drag, less margin, and no extra freedom, and then to give you the exact framework to fix the structure before you expand the payroll, and if you even need to expand your payroll to begin with, okay? Because guess what? Depending on how you lay out your processes and systems, there's a chance that you don't even need to make a key hire to begin with. Now, in terms of what this video covers, the false promise of the next hire, the difference between task offloading and ownership transfer, why dependency breaks as you scale, founder subsidy. So with this specifically, it's to do with how your unpaid, undocumented labor is hiding the true cost of delivery and how to put a number of it on it. Why hiring is not the enemy. The founder dependency stack. So ultimately how to do a deep dive into the 5 layers of dependency: knowledge, decision, relationship, delivery, sales, the order to fix them in, and how to do it. Delete before you document, because guess what? A couple of the things that you're actually doing, you probably may not even need. How to actually extract what's in your head, the time paradox, why you actually won't let go, where hiring stalls and how to fix it, implementation rules, what the system prevents, and the 90-day outcome. Okay, so what your business will look like 90 days after installing this. So you can pause the video at any point, because with some of these points, I'm not going to expand on because they're already self-explanatory, so there's no need for me to read these out loud. But again, you can pause it anytime you want to read in more detail if needed. Now, when this becomes relevant is simply the point in which your business is no longer enough for you to go off a feeling, okay? And it comes back to the topic of proximity with you as a founder, where this typically occurs north of 30K a month, i.e. beyond the lifestyle business phase, heading into the 7-figure per year realm. So when you're small, you can get away with a lot, okay? You can jump into sales, you save client accounts, you write the copy, you fix the tech, all these different things. That's not clean visibility, it's founder proximity. If you're looking to scale beyond multi-7 figures, the above isn't sustainable. Here are the specific stages where this video becomes extremely relevant for you, okay? When you're making bigger decisions from the same level of reporting. So the business has more risk attached to each hire, but you're still going off a feeling. That's not sustainable. When you're no longer personally close to every result. You can see the output, but you no longer automatically know the conditions that produced it. Coming back to the topic of metrics with and without context, the key principle behind that is the founder proximity that comes with each metric, where you subconsciously have all the context you need and you simply don't have that anymore. When the business feels more complex than the dashboard suggests, revenue may look fine, but cash, capacity, delivery, and even your own calendar still feels unstable. When you're trying to scale something that has only worked under specific conditions, the result may depend on your personal involvement, warm leads, or small delivery volume, as opposed to new conditions that you are yet aware of, in which your business can quite literally fall apart because it's not, scale proof. And then when you're also moving from founder-led growth into system-led growth, and the question is no longer whether the business is growing, but the question is whether the system can reproduce the growth without you. Now, here's what you'll be able to see differently after this. When your team's actually underperforming versus when they're just under systemized, so shifting the blame from the person to the process that they're forced to work within. When you're delegating outcomes versus when you're just offloading tasks. How to recognize the crucial difference between true delegation and simply handing out chores. When your business relies on process versus when it relies on personality. Understanding the foundation of a truly scalable operation. When margin is being protected by the founder, realizing that the P&L may not show the unpaid judgment, escalation handling, rework, quality control, and rescue model, holding the model together, or rescue effort, I should say. And finally, when early traction is not proof of a scalable system, is one of my favorite ones, by the way, because here's the thing. Novelty, timing, and founder reputation, it can create a temporary romantic stage that does not behave the same way later. You'll find this at the time of recording this video, in which it's 2026, it's June 2026, we're in the AI phase, where if you smack AI in the middle of anything nowadays, people will just probably buy it, okay? But we're starting to get out of that romantic phase in which people have their guard up and they're like, actually, people are just selling AI for the sake of it. There's actually no substance in it. So the guys that are getting away with building great businesses off of the terms, off of using the verbiage around AI, that's going to die out if they don't actually have a structure and thought process behind their business. Now, in terms of the decisions this video should help you avoid, it's going to help you avoid hiring too early. It's going to help you avoid blaming the team for failures that are actually system failures. It's going to help you avoid believing that a rockstar hire will magically fix your operations, because guess what? A players can only do so much unless they were tasked specifically to rebuild a system entirely, which is a different question. But if you're expecting them to operate on a broken system, that just doesn't make sense whatsoever, and it's got nothing to do with the individual's ability in question, okay? It's going to help you avoid overvaluing individual performance, because when a person's numbers are judged without understanding the environment, inputs, systems, and support that help create them, you lack context. And it's going to help you avoid committing to scale before the system is repeatable, because what got you here is unlikely to get you to where you desire to get to next, okay? And that is the common misconception that a lot of founders have. Now, here's why dependency breaks as you scale. When your business is small, visibility is informal. You can talk to the leads, you can check Stripe, you can listen to sales calls, you can speak to clients, you can feel delivery pressure, and you still have a fairly accurate sense of what's going on. This, however, it's not scalable or sustainable, but you can get away with it. The problem is that as the business grows, the operational standard often does not grow with it. You as the founder will still see the outputs, but you're no longer in close proximity to see how those outputs were achieved. The usual progression looks like this: founder proximity, informal confidence, more volume, more complexity, weaker context, false confidence, and expensive decisions as a result. This is why dependency starts breaking the business at the exact moment the founder needs to step back. The business has more activity, more reporting, and more data, but the founder may have less direct understanding of how the work is actually getting done. Now, here's what happens when you actually scale. You'll typically bring in more salespeople. Performance becomes harder to compare because each person may be selling into different inputs, scripts, proof, offers, or audiences, okay? Which, by the way, you absolutely should not have this, because ideally, even if you have multiple pieces of offers, they're following the same sales framework and whatnot, but even then, they may be using different forms of proof, whether it's client interviews, whether it's certain screenshots, or whatever it may be. More clients, churn and retention becomes harder to diagnose because client fit, onboarding, usage, and expectations, and even value realization vary between client. More delivery complexity, margin becomes harder to read because of rework, management load, escalation handling, and even founder subsidy increases on your end. And less founder involvement. Previously strong results may weaken because you, the founder, was part of the original mechanism that made them strong. And where this is most prominent, by the way, is where you, the founder, will typically be the face of the brand, and therefore, as soon as you step out of the sales position, naturally, your close rate may drop, okay? You as a founder may have an extremely high close rate where you're operating at like 40, 50, 60%, but then you bring in a closer and all of a sudden it can half, okay? Half may be a bit extreme because with the right processes and frameworks, they should still be operating at 30 to 40%, but in the industry, a natural dip is expected. I'll go one step further here. It's like when you start to pivot away from you and the marketing side, which typically you shouldn't, but if you're building to exit, it shouldn't be all revolving around you, the face. Your business simply can't scale because you are the heartbeat of it, okay? And again, this is something that changes over time. Now, the bigger the business gets, the less useful a surface level hire becomes on its own. This doesn't mean hiring becomes less important. It means systemization becomes more important before you hire. Now, here's the mistake most founders make, okay? It's not the fact that they ignore their team, it's that a lot of them are tracking too much already. You're probably watching this and you probably have dashboards, spreadsheets, CRM views, sales reports, finance sheets, delivery trackers, weekly scorecards, all these different things. The problem is that more reporting does not automatically mean more clarity. Sometimes it just gives the founder more things to look at while still not answering the real question, okay? The common mistake is using headcount to feel reassured before using systems to diagnose what is actually happening. This shows up when a founder treats the new hire as the answer instead of asking what produced the bottleneck and whether those conditions are repeatable. Makes permanent decisions from temporary pressure, especially when the bottleneck depends on timing, novelty, founder involvement, or a narrow source of demand. confuses activity with strength. This is where you assume more leads, more calls, more pipeline, more revenue, more staff means that the business is becoming more scalable. Or you look for another manager when the real issue is judgment. You add more reporting layers instead of improving the quality of the system itself, okay? So the operating principle for this video is very simple. A hire is an amplifier, okay? It only becomes useful when the founder understands the context, constraint, and the system attached to it. Super, super important, guys, because whether you get a team member in place or even AI in place or whatever it may be, these things are vehicles in which they're only useful if you as the founder understand the context that is being applied here. Now, here's the founder subsidy. One of the most dangerous concepts, right, in scaling is exactly this, because it's the hidden cost of you, the founder, absorbing pressure, rework, escalations, and QCing, which are things that never appear on the P&L. So when you look at your P&L, it may look healthy. You may think we deliver a great service and make a 70% gross margin, but that margin is a lie if it relies on you working 60 hours a week to maintain it, okay? If you have to step in and rewrite the copy, jump on the escalation call, fix the broken integration, close the difficult lead, you're literally subsidizing the business with all your unpaid, undocumented labor. If you had to pay the market rate for an executive to do all the things you're currently doing to hold the delivery together, your profit margin would likely vanish, okay? Hiring a junior person, it doesn't fix founder subsidy, okay? It often increases it because now you have to do all the rework. Plus, manage the junior person who did it wrong in the first place. You can't hire your way out of this. You have to systemize your way out of it, okay? So look, here's a quick exercise you can actually do in this video here. Because here's the thing, you can't manage what you refuse to measure, so you ideally want to put a number on it. So the first thing to actually do in this exercise is list every executive level function you're personally performing that's not documented or owned by someone else, and be very honest here, okay? Here's some examples. You may be doing, final quality control on delivery. You're probably handling client escalations and difficult conversations. My bread and butter, by the way, for the past 4 years. Closing the higher value or complex deals. You're reworking things and rescuing something when something's done wrong. Informal training and answering the same questions repeatedly. You're holding the key client relationships together, okay? List all of these different things out, guys. Step 2, next to each one, write the market salary you would have to pay a competent person to own it properly. Whether it's annual or monthly, it's perfectly your choice. Just be consistent across the board. Step 3, add it up, okay? That is your total founder subsidy. The salary the business is currently not paying because you're absorbing the work for free. And step 4, subtract that number from your stated profit, because what's left is your real margin here, okay? This is the margin the business actually has once your labor is priced at what it would cost to replace. If that adjusted number is thin, negative, or uncomfortable to look at, you don't have a profitable business yet, okay? And I know that can sting just me saying that out loud. What you have is a profitable founder propping up a business. That's the gap you need to close, and the way you close it is with systems and not with another hire who needs you to carry them. And if you did get a hire in place, it starts with systems, and if it needs a hire to maintain those systems, then you get one in at a cost-efficient rate, okay? Now, hiring is not the problem, the sequence of how you do things here, okay? So let me be abundantly clear here, because it would never be easy to walk away from this thinking the message is never hire. That is not the message here, okay? You're going to hire. You should hire. A business that scales is a business that adds people, especially if you're looking to scale to multi-7 figures and beyond. The problem is never the act of hiring. The problem is the order you do it in. There are 2 completely different reasons to bring someone on here, okay? The first of which is you hire to remove yourself from a system that already works. The function is documented, the standard is defined, and the outcome is clear. You're handling a built machine to an operator and stepping out. This is leverage. The second reason is you hire to paper over a function that is broken or living in your head. There's no playbook, no standard, no defined outcome. You're hoping the person figures out what you've never written out. This is overhead. So I'll give you a real-time example. When I joined Imperium as the operations manager, it was fantastic because I was basically freeing up Bo's time, the co-founder, who was the COO, but at the time he was doing work that he shouldn't have been doing because it was just him and Charlie, and it was like 2 other sales rep. Okay, so he already had things that were, documented to an extent. The standard was defined, and the outcome was clear. I was able to come in and execute immediately, and through using my, existing knowledge and, general acumen, not even on the business level, just having the ability to think, I was able to expand and build upon those systems and bring forward improvements and changes to Bo. But that came from the fact that Bo and Charlie already had existing processes in place, which worked, which was fantastic. And that's why we done so well when we scaled up, okay? If it was a case of processes were broken and functions were broken, then it would have been very hard for me to take over because there's only so much I can do. Everything would have lived on, Bo's instinct, okay? So that's a real-time example for you there. Now, the exact same hire, the exact same salary produces leverage in this first case, but it produces drag in this second case, okay? The variable is not the person, it's whether the seat that they're walking into was built before they arrived. So the rule is very simple here. Systemize the function, then hire into it. Build the machine, then bring the operator to run it. When you do it in that order, a good hire compounds. When you do it in reverse, even a great hire gets swallowed by the same chaos that was drowning you. I'm seeing this in real time at the moment where across different companies, the founder would tell me they got a good hire, but things aren't, going along well. But then we do a deep dive into performance, and we're trying to establish, is it a person problem or a people problem, or is it a systems process problem? And when we look at the systems at hand, no amount of person or no, person can save the systems, because guess what? The system is broken, okay? So you always want to actually have proper functioning systems to begin with, even if it's at a basic level, and then bring someone in to actually operate what works, and then they can expand upon it over time, okay? That is a super simple rule to follow. So when you systemize first, the seat at hand often shrinks. So there's a second payoff to this order that you as a founder would never typically see coming, and it lands directly on your wallet here. When you systemize a function before hiring, you frequently discover that the work was never as complex as it felt. It only felt like it needed, a senior, expensive, hard to find operator because it was tangled up in your head, undocumented, judgment heavy, and impossible to hand off cleanly. So the complexity at hand, it was an illusion created by the absence of a system, not by the work itself, okay? Once the function is extracted into a clean documented process, the realization will hit you. This doesn't need a 90K operator, okay? It needs a VA executing a defined playbook. The seat you are about to hire for just got smaller, cheaper, and far easier to fulfill because the system is now carrying the complexity instead of the person, okay? This then prevents you from a mistake that the rest of the video hasn't named yet, which is over-hiring. When you bring in an expensive senior person to do what a well-equipped junior could execute and pay for that, and you're paying for the judgment the system should be providing. Because here's the thing, you simply don't need a senior person if you have the processes outlined and simplified for certain things. And when I say certain things, for most of you watching this right now, I guarantee you, if you actually sit down and work to refine your processes, you'll realize it's way more simple than you believe, and you don't actually need to make a 90K hire. The amount of companies and clients that I speak to, and people in my network in general, that will say to me, oh no, I need an operations manager that's going to build this, that. Oh, I need an operations manager, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, all right, before we hire an operations manager, let's dig into the weeds here. What do you need them for? And we outline, everything on the table. And bear in mind, I'm a big advocate, for operations managers. I'm an operations manager myself. I'm a fractional operations advisor at the time of watching this, right? After leaving my previous role. So I'm an advocate for this. But here's the thing. Whenever I speak to, founders who want to hire an operations manager or even hire me as an advisor, we'll do a lay of the land. And guess what? The things that they thought they needed an operator for, they don't need them whatsoever. They don't even need me. Their processes are so simple that they didn't even realize that, a VA can execute it for like $5 an hour, okay? And that's the stone cold truth. So it's super important to understand that when you systemize and get your processes in place, it will save your pockets on an extremely deep level. Okay. Now, founders do this constantly where you feel the weight of an unsystemized function, you assume the weight means that you need a heavyweight to carry it, and then you hire up, and then you pay a senior salary for work a documented process makes junior. Okay, super important to realize here. Now, one important nuance here is that this doesn't tip into always hire cheap. Okay, some seats genuinely require senior judgment, and no amount of systemizing changes that. The point is not that, VAs replace operators across the board. The point is that the systems should carry the complexity so that the person can be more junior than the raw task first appeared to demand. Now, what you want to do on your end on the founder level is to build the structure first, then size the hire to what's actually left. You'll often find it's a fraction of what you braced for, okay? So the rest of this video that you're going to watch here, it's about building those seats before you actually fill them to save yourself a lot of money. Now, let's go over the founder dependency stack here, okay? So to fix the problem, you need to understand exactly where dependency lives. So the founder dependency stack that we're going to go over, it's a framework that breaks down the specific layers where your business is trapped. So a quick note on order before we go through them. These layers are sequenced deliberately, okay? Knowledge and decision dependency must be addressed first because you can't transfer a client relationship, a quality standard, or a sales process that was never documented or defined in the first place, okay? A relationship, delivery, and sales dependency all sit on top of the foundation that knowledge and decision creates. So you want to fix the bottom of the stack first, or the top will not hold, okay? So please, don't skip layers. Just do this in sequential order, guys, okay? So the first layer, knowledge dependency. What is it? So this is where the business, it can't function without your specific expertise. The how-to, it lives entirely in your head. Why it matters? If you're hit by a bus tomorrow, God forbid, the business stops, okay? New hires cannot succeed because they can't read your mind. It makes training impossible and scale a fantasy. How it lies to you. You think you have a team, but you actually have a group of assistants waiting for you to dictate the next steps. You feel like you're leading, but you're actually just narrating. Why you do this as a founder? It feels faster to just tell someone what to do rather than write down the process, okay? Founders convince themselves that their knowledge is too complex or nuanced to be documented. You enjoy the feeling of being the oracle that everyone comes to for answers. And guess what? Even on a leadership level with myself, when we were scaling the company up, I had a mini team under me, okay? I had 3 team members under me. But even then, I was just saying, no, I'll do everything myself. And it was from a place of ego as well, where it's like, oh, this is great. I feel like Superman knowing everything. When in reality, I should have just sat my ass down and actually laid out some processes to make my life easier. And it's something that Bo constantly pushed me to do because he realized that I was just doing too much and I was doing way more than I should have, especially on a leadership level, because he wanted me to focus on more, visionary work to drive the business forward. Okay. So this is not just relevant to you guys. It's also relevant to your leadership team if you have one. Now, here's the fix. Extract knowledge, build documented standards, playbooks, and SOPs. Define what good looks like for every role, okay? You must move the knowledge from your brain to the company's server. So that's the first layer, guys. The second layer, decision dependency. What this is where the business cannot move without your approval. You're the central hub for all choices, big and small. Big problem. Why it matters? It creates a massive bottleneck, okay? Your team learns to wait for permission rather than taking initiative. Speed of execution drops to the speed of your personal inbox. And the way this lies to you is that you as a founder, you think you're maintaining high standards, but you're actually just creating a culture of learned helpfulness, okay? The team isn't incapable. They're just afraid of doing it indifferently than you would. So you need to, one of the best things Charlie and Bo done back in Imperium, and I always reference them because, I had so many good years there, and there was a lot learned. One of the best things they had done is every single team member knew how to think for themselves within the decision-making framework that we had at Imperium. And this then allowed us to operate on a leadership level where we were following a thinking framework in our respective roles, but then we were also bringing our own ideas to the fold, okay? So it's a perfect hybrid. So you need to teach your team to think, but then you also need to give them the space and freedom to do so, without them being afraid of doing things, too differently, okay? Because them doing things in their own way, that's still in alignment with your way of thinking, it's not going to break the business, guys. In fact, it will innovate it if you have the appropriate talent on board. Now, the reason why founders do this is just down to control, okay? You fear that if you don't approve everything, the quality will drop and the brand will suffer, and you confuse delegation of authority with abdication of responsibility. Big words, big moves there. And I feel proud of myself just reading that out loud. And it's ironic that I stumble across smaller words after this. But the point I'm trying to make it, guys, is, just because you're delegating things, you think you're Billy Big Bollocks. But again, you're enhancing a broken system here because everything is dependent on you. So the fix here is you want to implement decision rules, okay? Explicitly define what decisions each role can make without asking you, and what decision must be escalated. So give them a framework for how to think and not just what to do. So what we used to do in our previous role, I was overseeing account recovery and all the client issues, all the client problems, and all these different things. And at our scale, believe it or not, we had problems every single day. But it was my job, and I deemed myself as a shit shield, to protect the leadership team, to protect the founders, Charlie and Bo, to protect all the sales reps, to protect all the setters, to not know anything about it. Because the minute one single problem gets into their head, it messes up their day. That's my job. I'm protecting them from everything, okay? And so as a result, guess what? I knew the decision-making rules because I laid it out, and I made it very clear to the leadership team, where it's like, hey, look, I'm only going to bring this to you if this or that happens, okay? And out of the 4,000 clients that we've had in the past 4 years, the only times that the founders have been involved in, in a case in which a client's complaining or we have a serious fire is probably less than 20 to 25 clients. Now you do the math on that, guys. 4,000 clients across 4 years, and you as a founder would have only had to be pulled in to 20 to 25. Even I'm going to go on a limb and say less than 20 situations, okay? That's not a bad return, is it? So that's what happens when you have a decision-making framework in place, okay? And there are different types of frameworks that you can actually implement. Layer 3, relationship dependency. So what this is where clients, for example, from a fulfillment standpoint, they stay because of you and not the business. They want access to the founder and not the team. And the reason this matters is because you as a founder can never step away from delivery. Your capacity caps the number of clients the business can handle, and you become the single point of failure for retention. And how it lies to you. You think you've got high client loyalty, but you just actually have high founder loyalty, okay? If you try to step back, churn spikes immediately. And the reason you do this is out of ego and fear. It feels good to be wanted, and you often, sell access to me in the early days to close deals, but then you get trapped by the promise as you scale, okay? The fix here is to shift the value proposition from access to you to access to the system that will yield the same result. And you want to build a delivery model that produces results regardless of who is operating it. And you want to elevate the brand above the individual. This is extremely important. And it's also important about, on how you're positioning your product and how you're marketing it and how it's perceived, okay? Because it's kind of like, what you're seeing with me at this moment in time, depending if you've seen my stories on Instagram, I make it very clear that my offer, for example, is one-to-one advisory. So you get direct access to me. Down the line, if I transition out, I need to make sure that I do it in an appropriate manner where it doesn't sort of, miscontextualize what it is, but the same value could still be upheld. If anything, rather than replacing me directly or replacing the one-to-one altogether, I'll just create a downsell that people can opt in for, which will be positioned differently, okay? So it's super important that you're very wary of this, because you don't want to build a business that's dependent on you. You want to build a business that's dependent on your system and your IP that can ultimately scale without you, so that you're not needed in fulfillment. Now, layer 4 is delivery dependency, okay? This is where quality depends on your personal involvement. And this is where the team can do the basic work, but you have to add the magic touch at the end. The reason this matters is because it creates a false sense of scale. You think you've delegated delivery, but you're still the final quality, QC checkpoint. You're still the bottleneck. And the way this lies to you is because your team looks productive, but their output is unusable without your final polish, okay? You're paying full salaries for partial completion. Imagine you hire a team member, they do what you're supposed to pay them to do, but then still, they can't green light it without coming to you, okay? There's no point having them to an extent, because at the end of the day, you know, they're still coming to you, which is what you wanted to avoid altogether, unless you hired them with the perception that they'll remove most of the workload for you. Then it's a different context, okay? Now, the reason you probably do this is because you're a perfectionist, okay? You believe no one can do it quite like you can, okay? You accept 80% work from the team because they secretly plan to do the final 20% themselves anyway, okay? And the reason I'm laugh when I'm rereading some of these points I wrote out as I record this video is because some of these things applied to me in my role back in Imperium, because there were things that I could have handed over to my team underneath me, but I didn't, okay? Because I was so egotistical and I assumed that I could do it. So you'll see here, guys, this isn't just a founder issue. Even as an operator, right? You'll experience this. So yeah, it's something that I had to work out on my system, okay? And I'm publicly holding myself accountable there, so that you know that I'm not perfect, and not all operators are perfect. Now the fix here is to build a rigorous QA system, and you define the standards so clearly that anyone can check the work against it without needing your magic touch. And this is where you stop accepting the 80% work, okay? You just get it 100% done. So the final layer is sales dependency, okay? So this is where, let me scroll up for a sec. This is where revenue stops when you stop selling, okay? You're the only one who can close the big deals. And the reason this matters is because you can never take a break from revenue generation. The pipeline dries up the moment you focus on delivery operations. Growth is entirely dependent on your calendar. The way it lies to you is that you think you have a sales problem, but you actually have a founder-led sales problem, okay? Your close rate's high because you have founder authority, not because your sales process is good, okay? So it's not a sales issue. It's the fact that, well, it is a sales issue, but we need to add context here. It's a you issue because only you can sell. Now, the reason you do this is because you fear losing revenue, okay? You're terrified that if you hire a closer, they'll burn leads and you'll hold on to the sales function long after you should have delegated it because it feels like the most direct control over cash. The fix here is to build a scalable sales system, okay? You actually follow a proven framework and sales process that your closers can come in and follow to yield a similar close rate. Now, for the sake of transparency, we've seen this with our company, and we also seen it with hundreds of clients where naturally, if you do hire a closer, you can expect the close rate to dip because it's normal. The closer may not be as good as you, and they don't have the advantage of you being the face of the brand, okay? But even then, with a proper framework in place, and that happens even with a proper framework in place, okay? Another thing to actually know is that super random is much more better to hold on to the sales process or the sales, department as a founder longer than you should than it is in terms of you relieving it early, okay? You relieving it early could be so detrimental to your business, and I've seen so many clients do this where their business simply broke because they outsource the most hardest part of their business and they don't know how to manage the person doing it. Now, in terms of where you should start, again, as we mentioned, you want to do everything, bottom up, okay? And you want to do everything in sequential order. Knowledge first, extract what's in your head. Nothing else is transferable until this exists. A decision second, once the knowledge is documented, define who can act on it without you. This is what stops the inbox bottleneck. Then delivery, with knowledge and decision rules in place, you can build a QA standard that holds without your final polish. And then relationship, now the system can carry clients, so you can shift them from founder loyalty to brand loyalty. And then sales, with delivery proven to hold without you, you can hand off the close knowing that the business can actually fulfill what gets sold, okay? Trying to fix sales relationship dependency while knowledge is still trapped in your head is why most delegation attempts collapse and route straight back to you, okay? So this is where you start, guys, and I guarantee you, just by extracting things from your head onto paper, if this is one thing that you do and you don't even do these things, I promise you this is a massive win. Because at the very least, you've got everything on paper now, and you can eventually start to systemize things. It all starts with getting things out of your head and onto paper. Now, couple rule of thumbs here, okay? And one of those things, one of those rules is to delete before you document. So before you systemize or you delegate anything, there's a faster route to freedom that you as a founder almost always skip. And that's deleting the work entirely. Because not everything drowning you deserves to be saved. Some of it should just die, okay? And deleted work is the cheapest freedom there is because it needs no SOP, no hire, no handoff, and no management. It's simply gone. So before a task earns a place on the systemized and delegate track, put it through a quick triage. And there are 3 honest questions you can ask here. Does this genuinely have to be me, or does it just feel that way? Does it actually move the business forward, or does it only keep me busy? If it disappeared tomorrow, what would truly break? Okay, the last one is the one that most founders never test because they assume everything they do matters because they're the one doing it. So here's how you actually find out if this is for real. Stop doing it for a week, kill it for 7 days, and then watch what happens. If something breaks, you've learned it matters, and now you systemize it. If nothing breaks, you learned the fact that it never needed doing, and the week of deletion just became permanent. You'll be surprised how much of your week survives this test as nothing happened. That is the work you were carrying for no reason, and no hire was ever going to fix it because it should not have existed in the first place. I'll give you a prime example of this. Years ago at Imperium, even let's go back 6 years ago when I was a client of Imperium, Charlie and Bo, they used to do Facebook Messenger chats for every client, okay? And then they thought they needed that, and Bo specifically thought he needed to be active constantly and reply to messages like that, when in reality, firstly, they didn't need to reply instantaneously, which Charlie was very aware of, and he had to help Bo understand that. And guess what? Nothing broke by them simply replying once a day. And then number 2, when we eventually removed them all together, nothing broke as well. They simply weren't needed, okay? So this is the best test you can do because you'll have things that you simply don't need, and you're just carrying it for no reason. And guess what? You don't need a process and you don't even need a hire. It shouldn't have existed to begin with. So the real order is delete what you shouldn't exist and then systemize what should, then delegate what's been systemized. Skip the delete step and you spend time and money documenting and handing off work you simply should have switched off. Super, super simple. Now, in terms of extracting things from your head, because again, this can be a bit of a strenuous task, but it doesn't have to, okay? Every fix above, it depends on the same first move, getting the knowledge outside of your head and onto the company server. And this is exactly where almost every founder freezes. It's not that you don't know what you should document, it's the fact that documenting feels like a second full-time job stacked on top of the one that's already drowning you. So writing SOPs from a blank page, cold for every process in the business, it's genuinely a miserable task. So it never happens, okay? So the intention dies on the to-do list and the business stays trapped in your head for another year. The fix at hand is to stop authoring documentation and start capturing it. So you do not sit down and you write the playbook. You record the work that you're already doing and you let the recording becoming the first draft, okay? So there's 2 practical ways to do this. The first of which is record yourself doing the task once. So the next time you do the only thing you can do, apparently you screen record it and narrate what you're doing and why as you go. That recording is your SOP draft. You didn't add work to your week, you simply documented a task you were going to do anyway, and if you do 10 of those, you've got an entire library. Then you make documentation, or the second way to do this is to make documentation the hire's job and not yours. So when you delegate something, don't hand over a finished manual, have the person build the SOPs by watching you do it once, and then doing it themselves whilst writing the steps down. You review and correct. Now the documentation is part of their onboarding instead of your homework, and they own a process they actually understand because they wrote it, okay? The principle here is to document by capturing, not by authoring. The knowledge leaves your head as a byproduct of work that was already happening, which is the only way it gets done consistently in a business that has no spare hours, okay? So this is super important to understand here, because when you actually sit down and try and make everything polished off and all these bloody, Google Docs with fancy step-by-steps and, amazing designs and whatnot, that's nice in theory, but to do that shit, it takes forever. And forgive me for my vulgar language here, as I do appreciate, I do curse a fair amount of times across these videos, but I need to work on that. But coming back to the point at hand, nobody's got time for that, okay? Especially on a founder level, and it doesn't yield the result that you're after. What's more effective is for you to simply record yourself doing the task and explain how you're doing it. A real life example of this is that when I was dealing with all the fires in the business and client escalations and client issues and how to de-escalate issues and the communication patterns and how to deal with like refund requests and all these different things, everything was stuck in my head, and I was doing it in such a unique way, at least I thought I did. I didn't know how to lay it out on a step-by-step basis. So what I started doing was I just started recording myself dealing with the processes, and then started to systemize it in that manner by explaining my thought process out aloud, as opposed to trying to do everything on a step-by-step basis. Eventually, down the line, once the SOP was refined again and again, that's where more structured steps came in. So that is super important to understand, because in terms of extracting what's in your head, you don't want to do it in a to-do list manner and just do step by step straight off the rip. It's better for you to just record yourself doing the task once, and doing it for various tasks, and boom, you got yourself an SOP library. Is it rough? Yes. Does it work? Yes. Is it effective? Yes. Can it be improved over time? Absolutely. Okay. So the next thing to look at is the time paradox and why this isn't optional. Okay. So there's an obvious objection sitting underneath everything in this video, and you've probably already felt it. Okay. I'm too buried being the bottleneck to build the thing that removes the bottleneck. This is real, and it's also the exact trap. The reason you stay the bottleneck is that fixing it always loses to the urgent work in front of you, and the urgent work is infinite. Build time does not happen in found time, because the business will always expand to fill every hour you leave open. So you have to ring fence it. You need to block the time to build the system the same way you would block a client call, and protect it just as hard. You don't want to, just do like, you don't want to just be in a mode where you go, I'll document when things calm down, because things do not calm down. A founder dependent business never gives you a quiet week. You have to take it, okay? So here's what makes it worth it. The work compounds in a way that firefighting never does. Every process you document once is a process you never have to explain again. Every decision rule you define is a decision that stops routing to your inbox. The hour you spend extracting something today gets repaid every single time someone would otherwise have interrupted you to ask. Firefighting buys you one quiet afternoon. Systemizing buys you back the same hour over and over and over again for as long as the business runs. And here's the hard truth. If you will not protect the time to build a system, you're choosing to stay the bottleneck. It will not feel like a choice, it will feel like a circumstance, but it is a decision. The founders who get free are simply the ones who decide to pay for the build up front instead of paying the subsidy forever. So this is a prime example that can be applied everywhere, whether it's your personal life, whether it's your professional life. You have time. Everyone's got time. It's just a matter of what you priority. So you need to be intentional with what you block off, okay? So for me, for example, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, they are my call days, okay? They are where I've conceded to the fact that I'm going to have client calls and I may not necessarily get the most meaningful work done. Wednesday specifically is bombed with calls, okay? And that's fine. I've accepted that. Tuesday and Thursday, I get some level of high quality work done in the AM and mid-afternoon. Mondays and Fridays, they're my build days, okay? And that's where I specifically have no calls so that I can actually build, whether it's program content, assets for my one-to-one advisory, things that I'm doing for consulting clients, whatever it may be. I've done it very intentionally. Even this YouTube video, okay? I set aside the specific Saturday to get this fleshed out, and you're going to see it on a Sunday, hopefully. So the point I'm trying to make is you want to ring fence your time and protect the time to actually do what I'm prescribing here, because it will set you free in the long term, okay? 1 to 2 hours blocked off will save you, God knows how many hours in the long term. Now, the reason why you actually won't let go if you're in that mindset is because everything up until this point has been about the business, where dependency lives, how to extract it, how to find the time. But there's a more uncomfortable layer underneath all of it, and if you skip it, none of the systems will stick. You have to be honest about why you personally hold on. Because when a founder won't let go of a task, it's almost always one of 5 reasons, okay? And you want to name yours because the fix is completely different depending on which one it is. When you establish the reason, then you're going to get the fix that's associated with it. So it's super important to gauge this because, like, you know, if you don't understand why you won't let go, how are you going to solve for it, okay? So really take the time to gauge this thoughts. Now, here are the different emotional blocks that are specifically about you, okay? It could be to do with your ego. Only I can do it to the standard it needs. Sometimes that's true. Usually, however, it's pride dressed up as quality control. Inertia. I've always done it, so I just keep doing it. No decision was ever made to keep it on your plate. It just never got questioned. Control. I don't trust anyone else to touch this. The fear of it being done worse keeps it permanently yours, okay? And then structural blocks. These are about your business specifically. Clarity. I can't hand this off because I don't even fully know what it involves. The process has never been mapped, so it can't be transferred. Capacity. There is genuinely no one to give this to. The seat to receive it doesn't exist yet. And here's why labeling it matters. There are 2 types. It needs opposite fixes, okay? If your blocks are emotional, no system will save you because the bottleneck isn't the business, it's you. The fix is a mindset confrontation. Accepting that 90% done by someone else consistently beats 100% done by you occasionally. That you are paying for control, and it's also the fact that you're paying for control with your own freedom, and the price is everything this video is trying to give you back, okay? If your blocks are structural, which is to do with your business, the opposite is true. There's nothing to confront within yourself. You simply haven't built the thing yet. Clarity gets fixed by extracting and documenting the process. Capacity gets fixed by building the seats and then sizing the hire to do it. Both are covered above. Most founders are a mix. The point is to know which task is stuck for which reason, because trying to systemize an ego problem fails, and trying to mindset coach a capacity problem is just stalling, okay? Diagnose honestly and then apply the matching fix associated with which one. Now, even when you as a founder understand the dependency stack that we went over, you will often still fail when you're making the actual hire. And the system breaks down because placing a person into an environment requires more than just signing an employment contract. Okay, so I have placed, people at a volume before where, there was one time where, not one time, sorry, but over time, I helped scale one team, not one team in my previous company. It was one single team, Imperium, from a team of 5 to a team of 40. At one point in onboarding 20 people in under 2 weeks, okay, during a major transition early on in the year. So the failure points below, they're not theory, they're exact patterns I watched break good hires when the system underneath them wasn't necessarily built to the best of its ability, okay? And here's the below common causes of hiring failure in founder-dependent businesses, how to actually fix them, how to prevent them in advance. Now, thankfully, we at Imperium had majority of the processes dialed down, okay? However, there was some that slipped through the cracks. And on top of this, because of all the clients that we worked with, specifically in our mastermind, where we were a lot more, it was a lot more work done on a one-to-one basis, we were always able to see clients where whenever they made a good hire, they just fell through the cracks, and it had nothing to do with the individual, it's to do with the processes, okay? So below are the most common causes that you'll see here. So the first of which is the mind reader expectation, okay? So the problem that you find is a new hire fails to execute tasks the same way in which you want them done, leading to frustration on both sides. You assume that the hire is incompetent, whereas the hire feels that they were set up to fail. And the reason this happens is because it stems from the founder holding the standard of success entirely in their own head. They've not documented the process, they've not defined the outcome or provided examples of what good looks like. And therefore, they expect the hire to infer the standard through osmosis. The solutions here: define the outcome, not just the lead. So before the hire starts, write down exactly what a successful result looks like. Build the playbook. Document the step-by-step process for achieving that outcome. Provide examples. Show them what a 9 out of 10 result looks like and what a 6 out of 10 result looks like. and then implement the watch me, do it with me, do it yourself model. And this is where you never hand off a task without this structured transition, okay? The next common cause that we see is the delegation dump. So this is where you as a founder, you hand over a massive complex project on day one, expecting the new hire to immediately take ownership and drive it into completion. The project stalls and the founder has to step back in to rescue it. The reason this happens is because founders often confuse delegation with abdication. They're so eager to get things off their plate and that they dump responsibility without providing the necessary context, authority, or support structure. So the solutions here is to have staged handoffs in place. Break complex projects into smaller manageable milestones. It's far more easier to consume through the lens of our new hire. Define decision boundaries. Explicitly state what the hire can decide independently and what must be escalated. Establish check-ins. Schedule regular reviews to ensure alignment and course correct early. Provide context. Explain why the project matters and how it fits into the broader business strategy. Okay. Now the next cause is the culture fit mirage. The problem: the founder hires someone who is highly likable and seems to fit the company culture perfectly, but who consistently underperforms in their actual role. The reason this happens is because you as a founder, you may overvalue personality and undervalue competence, okay? You hire people you enjoy spending time with, which I've seen time and time again, rather than people who possess the specific skills and the experience required to execute the job effectively. So the solutions here: define the role itself first, okay? Clearly articulate the specific skills, experience, and competencies required for success. Use objective assessments, skill tests, look at case studies or work samples during the interview process. Standardize the interview. Ask every candidate the same set of questions to ensure that there's a fair comparison at hand. Separate likability from capability. Recognize that being a good person does not automatically make someone a good employee. There's a big difference between the two. Don't just hire your friend. I've seen people do this and then they hire the wrong person and then it just all goes tits up. Again, forgive me for my vulgar language there. Another cause is the invisible onboarding. So this is where the new hire is thrown into the deep end on day one with little to no formal training or orientation. And they spend their first few weeks feeling lost, confused, and unproductive, sorry. And the reason why this happens is because you're too busy dealing with the immediate demands of the business to dedicate time to proper onboarding. And therefore you assume the hire will figure things out as they go. Solutions: create an actual 30 to 60, 90-day plan with goals, expectations, and milestones for the first 3 months at hand. Assign a mentor. If you've got a leadership team and managers and whatnot, pair the new hire with an experienced team member who can answer questions and provide guidance. Schedule regular check-ins. Dedicate times each week to review progression, address concerns, and provide feedback. Document the basics. Ensure the hire has access to all the necessary tools, systems, and information from day dot, okay? The next cause, and the final cause here, is a set it and forget it fallacy. So the problem here is that the founder, you will hire someone, provide them initial training, and that's it. You completely disengage and you'll assume the hire will manage themselves indefinitely. Performance gradually declines as a result over time. And the reason this happens is because founders will often view hiring as a one-time event rather than an ongoing process of management and deployment or development. They fail to establish, and when I say they, I mean you, the necessary rhythms and structures to sustain performance. And this also goes beyond you as a founder, and it's also applicable to your leadership team. Very simple solutions here. Implement weekly one-to-ones, schedule regular meetings to discuss progress, challenges, and goals, establish clear-cut KPIs, define objective metrics for measuring success and track them consistently, provide ongoing feedback, offer constructive criticism and recognition on a regular basis, invest in development, and this is where you provide opportunities for training, learning, and career growth, okay? So by having these 4 solutions here, the main one, to be transparent with you, being free and one, because you just simply being in close proximity to some capacity, and that alone will keep them on track and they will keep them moving. And at a point in time, you no longer have to be in close proximity with them because they're able to function themselves, okay? When I got onboarded with Imperium, me and Bo, we used to meet up like twice a week. And it was fantastic because I basically became a clone of him with my own way of thinking. Okay, and as a result, it got to a point where, you know, we didn't even do like 2 calls a week, and I think for the entirety of like 2025, we didn't even see each other once a week, you know, on a one-to-one basis, because there was no need to. Okay, so again, that's how powerful this can be if you do it for a extended period of time, for a decent amount of time, because when you do it once, you don't have to do it in the long term, because you naturally develop a leader who can function without you. Okay. Now, some implementation rules here to take away from this video, and this is to do with, you know, again, if you wanted to scale without dependency. The first of which, systemize before you hire. Never bring a person into the role if it has a broken process, okay? Document the standard, define the outcome, and build the playbook before you write the job description. Delegate outcomes, not tasks. Give your team ownership of the result, not just a list of chores. Provide the context, authority, and resources they need to succeed. Enforce decision rules. Explicitly define what decisions each role can make independently and what must be escalated. Stop being the bottleneck for every minor choice. Measure by output, not activity. So again, track the results your team produces, not just the hours they work or the tasks they complete. Implement clear KPIs for every role. I was speaking to someone in my network, and they have a client in which their client was tracking client success and the success of the CSMs based on time it takes to reply to a message. And that's got like nothing to do with the output, because like, sure, time to response is a good metric to have, but it's not the be all and end all, and it doesn't indicate client results. Okay. Protect against the founder subsidy. Relentlessly identify and eliminate the unpaid documented labor you're contributing to your business. Okay, the goal is to build a model that's actually profitable without your constant intervention. And then maintain your QA standard. Never accept that 80% work. Define the standard of excellence clearly and hold your team accountable to it. Build a rigorous quality assurance system that does not rely on your magic touch. Now, what this system prevents, and it's quite a lot that it prevents here: endless hiring cycle. No more hiring people, watching them fail, firing them, and starting over. Founder bottleneck. You'll no longer be the central hub for every decision, approval, and QC. The profit illusion. You'll stop subsidizing the business with your unpaid labor and start building true scalable margin. The magic touch trap. Delivery quality will no longer depend on your personal involvement. The scale plateau. You'll break through the revenue ceiling that you're currently capped at by your personal capacity. And then the burnout inevitability. You'll build a business that serves you rather than a job that consumes you. Okay, so these are all the things that these prevent. Now, if you install these things correctly, you'll have the following within as little as 90 days. You'll have a clear dependency map, and you know exactly where your resource or where your business relies on you and what needs to change. You'll have documented standards. The core processes currently trapped in your head will be extracted and documented. You'll have defined decision boundaries where your team will know exactly what they can decide without asking you. You'll have a true margin read, because you will understand the real cost of delivery without the founder subsidy hiding the truth. And you'll have a ready-to-hire environment, because you'll have the appropriate systems, standards, and playbooks in place to successfully integrate your next team member. Now, here's the thing. Visibility creates control. Control creates peace, and peace enables scale. Who doesn't want that? Okay. And if you still feel trapped after installing this, then the issue is not the team. It's either your unwillingness to let go or your failure to enforce the standard. Now, here's an implementation exercise for you, which is specifically to do with, you know, gauging if it makes sense to make an actual hire. Bear in mind, these are just rough scores, but it's a good indicator on whether you should hire or not. Okay, so put yourself and put the role in question through this diagnostic, and then score each question from 1 to 5. 1 indicating not at all, 5 equals completely. So the role in question here, it could be, you know, an operations manager, for example, or whatever it may be. So the first thing, documentation. Do we have a step-by-step playbook that shows exactly how this role executes its core functions? 1 to 5. Measurement. Do we have a weekly scorecard that defines objective success for this role, independent of my opinion as a founder? 1 to 5. Decision making. Have we explicitly defined the boundaries of what this person can decide without asking me? 1 to 5. Onboarding. Do we have a structured 30, 60, 90-day plan to take this person from day one to full productivity? 1 to 5. And finally, outcome clarity. Can I articulate the exact business outcome, not just the tasks, that this role is responsible for? 1 to 5. Okay. So again, these are rough scores to go over, and you'll gauge a good feeling, or you get a good feeling rather than playing the guessing game now as to whether you should hire or not. If you're 21 to 25, you're probably ready to hire, and the system's built to support them. If you're anywhere between 13 to 20, it's something to be wary of, because you may have gaps that will require heavily involvement to bridge. And if you're under 13, don't hire just to be on the safe side, because you're not ready for a person, you're ready for a process, or you're long gone and you need a process ASAP, and therefore hiring now will only increase your management drag and your founder subsidy. Okay, so go through this hire readiness audit before you assume that a hire needs to come in to fix whatever bottleneck that you have, because there's a chance that you may not even need a hire to begin with. Okay, so that is it for this week's training. I hope you guys found it valuable, and yeah, if there's anything you want covered next, leave a comment below. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me on IG. You can also leave a comment below on YouTube, but I don't really check it until the next week when I do make an upload. The video cadence, if you're new here, it's typically once a week, depending on brain capacity. And if you did want to work with me on a one-to-one basis to help scale your business without you being the bottleneck, DM me advisory, and I can help you do so. Right by your side. I can share how exactly I can do that. Okay, so yeah, these are my socials. Instagram I'm most active on, so feel free to find me there. And yeah, hope you guys found this video valuable. I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers guys, bye.